So Njeri has been trending because she imported a consignment of oil. We don't have the specific details as to the source of the oil, but she imported it and the government impounded it. And then they summoned her to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations for interrogation. And then the DCI, according to lawyer Cliff Ombeta, the DCI abducted her and kept her in a house, in an unknown destination for over 5 days. And then she was later found somewhere near Nyayo high-rise estate when she was released and then later presented in court. So we've returned back to an era of state-sponsored gangsterism, reminiscent of the Moi era. Moi had around him a bunch of uncreative ethnic bigots who used to spearhead policy, but the policy was not aimed at growing the economy or boosting our productivity. It was aimed at primitive accumulation. If they saw you have a thriving business, then they would pull up. If they saw you're doing something, they would forcefully acquire. There are so many tales of the Moi era. I think during the Kibaki era, there was some element of, things stalled a bit. But then in the Uhuru era, we saw it creeping up. We saw Rose Kemodo, the proprietor of Kameme, Kameme FM, Kameme TV, Media Max. We saw her interview on the mainstream media talking about how she just went for a loan, which was an overdraft facility of just a few, 10 million, and afterwards, within 6 months, it's ballooned to 70 million. So we are, the problem is we have mentally impotent bureaucrats. The problem with you guys is you're uncreative. And instead of sitting down with the creative people to show you how we can boost this economy, you are spending your time meeting religious leaders. What value do religious leaders have to the economy? You see, you're being forced to steal from people who are doing the actual enterprise, just to entertain the religious leaders, the tumbocrats, who steal in the name of the Lord, just to entertain them, instead of now entertaining or, hosting industrialists and whoever who will show you the incentives that you need to employ so as to create a conducive environment for business. And the cake, you add the baking powder. But what are you meeting religious leaders for? Because at the end of the day, you're still going to run out of money to give them. And then now you're going to resort to such mercenary tactics of taking someone's fuel consignment. So we are returning and we are regressing quickly back to the Moi era. The problem with many people is like now today there was an EPRA fuel review. They didn't reduce the price of fuel. You people are happy that the prices did not go up, instead of being outraged that the prices should have gone down. In Botswana they have gone down. In Tanzania they have gone down. Uganda yesterday, the members of parliament passed a law allowing them to now import their fuel directly instead of using Kenya as the brokerage house or as the middleman house. So the problem at the end of the day is the masses who are still easily tooled, easily played for fools by very basic propaganda. I told you not to be worked up. Every week they have to concoct something just to keep you gaslighted, just to dominate your conversations on your WhatsApp groups. Like when you see some things which are untenable, when they say that for you to leave the country you have to pay 170, that's a lie. Every day they have to cook something, they have to concoct something just to keep you guys on the edge, to keep you in a constant state of anxiety. Like now, the minister, now he has backtracked. Remember, he had increased the price of IDs and passports. He knows it's impossible because these are government documents. The government is not supposed to be profiting off the giving away of these constitutional and legal documents. So it cannot be turned into a private enterprise for money minting, because we already pay tax and we pay taxes so that these things, in fact, they should be acquired for free. So but now he reverses the same directive, and then you guys are celebrating, while you don't know that this is the strategy that this government has been using from day one. Step one, you create and manufacture the outrage, and then you come back to purport to solve the same solution that you the same problem that you caused. with a solution of back to basics, back to your original pricing, and then you guys are celebrating. When will it's your addiction to this cheap propaganda that is making us constantly be bombarded with every day they have to come up with something to keep you guys on the edge. So when will you outgrow? When will you stop consuming this? When will you stop retweeting? Don't forget that most of the people who retweet these things, the ones who come up with a lot of shock and saying breaking, guy, oh my God, have you seen? All of them are paid. This is a scripted PR show. So until the day you win yourself from the tentacles of the government's propaganda, we are still stuck in the same cycle. In relation to the story that we read of one Njeri, where her fuel consignment has been forcefully acquired, we go back and cover a similar story. There are so many of them, but this one caught my attention. It's an article done by John Kamau of the Nation Media Group, a very sober guy. He's not your typical quintessential either media journalist. He does a lot of research. So he's talking about somebody called Mogo Mungai. Mogo Mungai is the founder of the first building society in Kenya. It used to be called Pioneer Building Society. I knew it. I would see it occasionally, but his company was taken away from him. Yeah, in 1986. He was the age of 44. In 1978, he first of all, this guy had studied in UK. Yeah, he had studied in UK. He went to a college called Thurrock Training College and Waltham Forest in the UK, where he's trained. He trained as an accountant and certified public secretary in the 1960s. And he has been in and out of court trying to recover his properties, which were grabbed under the Moi regime. Remember, I told you that the Moi regime and the Kenya Kwisha regime are identical. The only difference is the PR. Is how they are, at least here in the Kenya Kwisha regime, they are trying to deflect attention with a lot of PR. But in the Moi, it was open gangsterism. And I told you that the people who are heading the country now, they don't know anything else. They don't know any other blueprint because they were trained and taught and mentored by Moi, and Moi never knew anything else other than looting, primitive accumulation. You understand? So Mogo Mungai. He was born in Kanyarere village in Kabete. He worked after he came back from the United Kingdom. He worked for somebody called Kimani Gumba, who was a supervisor, educational supervisor at the Christian Churches Educational Association, where now he was supervising the running of the schools which were under the Anglican Church of Kenya. That Gumba went on to become the Nairobi mayor in 1983. I think you know there is an estate somewhere near Ruaraka called Gumba. It was owned by that guy. So Gumba himself had registered something called the Rural Urban Credit Finance Limited, and it was domiciled at Waumini House somewhere in Westlands. And so Mogo Mungai started learning and started being inspired to venture on his own line. So in 1978, despite he went to one of these white-owned banks, despite lodging the prerequisites as regards to collateral. He was applying for a loan for 150,000 in 1978. They denied him. And so he was very infuriated, and he decided, to be part of the solution, unlike, most of the people. He talks about, in the article, he talks about his age group, his peers. During that period, all they were just doing was sherehe, mwenjoyo, but he decided to make something out of himself. He didn't want to be like the current crop of boomers who we talk about, the ones who enjoyed the very facilities. We had a long conversation on my YouTube live. Somebody like President Ruto enjoyed the facilities of Higher Education Loans Board. He enjoyed the education, that access. He enjoyed the university education. But now they use a ladder to climb, and instead of now farming it for other generations to benefit them, they now do away with the ladder, which is now you're seeing all the politics as regards to help, as regards to university education. So it's an era of boomers, but when I say boomers, they are specs, they are individuals who might have been different from the prevalent mentality at the time, which is primitive accumulation, which is why they enjoyed the playgrounds, they enjoyed the green spaces, the parks, the public utility land, they enjoyed even the schools. But now that they have grown, they have educated their children, they are like, let's grab the playgrounds, let's grab what? This is the mentality of boomers. Not all boomers, I keep saying, but if you were silent as your peers were doing that, then silence is consent. Don't come here and say, oh, I was a better boomer. No. If you are silent, if you are maintain friendships with people, if you go to church, if you maintain friendships and networks with people who have accumulated their wealth from grabbing public utility land, from grabbing playgrounds, then you're not different. Silence is consent. So Mogo Mungai in the 1980s, early 1980s, as he was still working for Kimani Gumba, he then started researching. He went and acquired something from the government printer as regards to the registration of building societies and whatnot. And he started researching and he started finding a way of making his own bank, but he couldn't meet the financial threshold. He couldn't meet the requirements of opening his own bank, but he found a way of registering something called building societies. And his was the first. It was called the Pioneer Building Society, and he started it in 1984. And true to it, when I cite the article, he says so Mogo Mungai opened a branch in Nairobi, and business started there, picking very fast. He then went to Nakuru. He then went to Thika. He was so aggressive because there was demand of the product, which were low cost, small loans and advances on salaries, because it had become prohibitive to use the white-owned bank, the foreign banks, and even like when he was citing the article, he said opened a branch in Nakuru. He opened a branch, and one day he was called by the manager because the queues were snaking to the pavements. I drove there and decided to look for a plot. I got one at 600,000. And we started building. After only one floor, we stopped to move our branch there. The building today still has one floor and houses KCB branch. In total, I had 8 branches countrywide, he told court. We succeeded beyond anyone's thought. As usual, copycats followed. Equity Building Society, Equity Bank by James Mwangi started as a building society. Family Finance, the what you call the family bank today, started as a building society. Nationwide Finance, Rural Urban Credit, owned by his former boss called Kimani Gumba, and Jimba Credit, amongst others. All of them cloned his idea, because in Kenya, we don't know how to incubate ideas. We only know how to steal. People are mentally malnourished, especially that age group, that era of the boomers. They have limited ideas, and even instead of them incubating ideas, and you'll notice even these major blue chip firms or these major companies, they have no research and development department in their companies, because them they only know how to acquire companies on the go. Like now these banks, they just sit down there because you go and apply for a loan in a bank like Equity. Them they are just thinking of how they are going to forcefully acquire your collateral, instead of thinking of ways of how to boost your earnings so that you can, both of you can mutually grow. This is I told you, and I keep saying, boomers, when are we going to get rid of this generation, this toxic generation? I know some are saying that they are better, they are not like the same boomers, but there is a pattern here. There is the era which you grew up in, and then now you allowed yourself to be oppressed. And you are not being oppressed just by the politics, because between 1982 and 1992, that's when we had the most, the grossest form of constitutional decay, where you guys accepted and you bought the idea of the one-party state. Section 2A was introduced by Moi, and you guys were just clapping for him, standing on the roads shouting, Kanu, Juu, Zaidi. You people there, you messed us, you wasted an entire generation for us. And Moi was a product of the Western nations, the IMF and the World Bank, where as they were suppressing such local companies, such local startups, they were allowing the foreign companies to work, to work without being blocked. So So Mogo Mungai was a very aggressive man, in his late 30s, early 40s. In 1984, city tycoon Paul Njeri sold him six acres at Outer Ring Road for the first phase of Pioneer Estate, which he built then in 1984. And then business started growing, and in 1986, Yoweri Museveni took over from, as president. And because he had spotted the business and he was expanding at a very fast rate, he thought of traveling to Uganda. And when he went to Uganda to try and, engage Museveni and the establishment at the time to open a branch there. But by the time he was coming back, he was arrested at the airport by CID. Now you call them DCI. The same way they abducted Njeri Njoroge is the same way they arrested Mr. Mogo Mungai. And then they were accusing him that he's gone to buy guns to come and topple the Moi regime. Moi became very paranoid. That's the time he started cracking down on the Mwakenya movement and all forms of dissent, including journalists, even just novelists, even just artists. He started cracking down on them because Moi became a paranoid guy. And he was still having people within the establishment who are celebrating him. The Western governments, the Western nations, the Muzungus, they loved him because as he was cracking down on Kenyans, he was allowing their businesses. Like now he started liberalizing, and now we started being importers. All the gains we had made from industrialization in the 60s and the 70s, all of those gains were eroded because of his paranoia, his greed and thirst for power. It's the same is happening today. Now, what do we have? We have a plethora of sycophants, each parroting the agenda of the government, which is to primitively acquire, which is to destroy your business, your enterprise with high taxes. They use, you have people like Kamau Thuge and Professor Njoguna Ndongo. They are placating and they are doing what the IMF is telling them. It's so shameful that even Monday's holiday was dictated by the IMF. IMF are the ones who said we should have a holiday. Since when have we conceded our sovereignty as a country? Why did the freedom fighters engage in such a guerrilla warfare prolonged for over 10 years? Why? If we are still doing what the Muzungu is telling us, the more we move forward, the more we are backtracking. And it's all because of who? It's all because of your addiction to cheap thrills, watching the media, listening to your corrupt clergy. The corrupt clergy have been going to State House purporting to advise the president. What do they know? Have they ever, do you know any clergy who has ever started a business, a successful business, an enterprise, an industry? Why are they getting so much airtime? For us to move forward, you have to start now boycotting the people who are the pillars of this regime, who are the media, who are the corrupt clergy. You have to start boycotting them. You have to start denying them their money. And I was happy today. I heard there is a blue chip corporate which is now no longer going to be advertising on media houses which host Kenya Kwanza politicians, because they have realized through a lot of research, market research, that anytime a Kenya Kwanza politician goes on air, like now Ndindi Nyoro goes on air, the people switch off and turn to another station. So this is verified information and details. So now you have to start denying people money, the people who are the key anchors of this regime. Yeah, let's continue with Mogo Mungai's story. In 1986, November 13th, the Registrar of Societies, called Robert Kingarui, wrote and asked him to close down his company. By the time that the Registrar of Societies was writing to him, he had fixed deposits worth 30 million. He had miscellaneous investments worth 145 million, and his advances and loans towards people, Kenyans, were at 160 million. So the registrar also sent two representatives to act as also receiver managers. One of them was William Ikapel and A.S. Garama. I just did a search on William Ikapel, and he passed away last year in December. So until his death, I was reading from his obituary. Until his death, Mr. Ikapel was senior counsel at Bungoma and Busia counties. Mr. Ikapel was former acting managing director of KBC, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. So Moi used to reward the people who are doing his dirty work. And I told you, Moi used the smartest. He used people who are geniuses like Amos Wako. Amos Wako was used to undermine democracy and good governance by Daniel Arap Moi. You understand? So this one was well rewarded for shutting down Pioneer Building Society. So and he was also a magistrate at Makadara, Eldama Ravine, Machakos. He was also council member at Lupe University, a long-serving chairman of BOM St. Paul's Amukura High School, Board of Management of St. Paul's Manufacturing. And so they shut him down, and Mr. Mogo Mogai was very frustrated, and he has been he started seeking justice. So in one of the excerpts of the article, I'm going to post it as is, a friend advised him to go and see President Moi. So I went to Kabarak one morning in 2000 to see President Moi. He recalls, Moi knew me. I used to go to State House often to take donations to him, just like everybody else in those days. You see, Moi has no loyalty. He has no loyalty. Even if you take money to him, he'll still find a way of shafting you at the end of the day, especially if the white establishment compels him to. So we talked diplomatically, and I told him I needed his help. He promised that he would sort out the matter, and I gave him some written facts on my banks and my properties. 1 year later, Mungai would return to the office of the president to see Moi again. And then Moi, he was an idiot. Hiyo nakumbuka. Mr. Mungai quotes the former president telling him, Moi was an idiot. But after 1 month, he received a letter from Richard Leakey. Richard Leakey, you guys were praising him. He was imposed there by the World Bank and IMF, and they were called the dream team, together with Martin Oduor Otieno, together with Titus Naikuni. You know, Titus Naikuni has gone and collapsed Kenya Airways. He's the one who founded all these phantom companies named after national parks, meant to hemorrhage money from the national carrier. Now it's the pale shadow of its former self, Titus Naikuni. If I was president, you would be in jail, my friend. But after a month, he received a letter from Richard Leakey, the then head of civil service and secretary to the cabinet, telling Mr. Mungai to sort out his matter with the official receiver. With the official receiver manager. So when we are talking about Njeri, Njoroge, the oil trader, she has gotten oil from wherever she has gotten, but the gangsterism in this country is reminiscent, is identical to what used to happen in the Moi era. And let me tell you, people sleep very fast. In just 1 year, the airport in Nairobi is leaking water. In just 1 year, somebody's oil consignment is fraudulently. I was reading that she appeared in a Mombasa court, released on Monday night near Nyayo Estate. She has imported 17 billion worth of oil. 17 billion. I don't know how she has managed to do it. They are not telling us, but they are already using the media to project her as a potential criminal. Remember, before they exterminate you as a business person, if they want to forcefully acquire your property, they first start by demonizing you. We saw it in the Uhuru era when Uhuru was forcefully trying to acquire Humphrey Karaoke's properties. Yeah, they first demonize him that he's doing fake stuff, or he's manipulating the KRA stamps, he's forging them and whatnot, or he's bootlegging drinks. You see, they have to first besmirch you. They have to first drag your reputation in the mud. These are tactics that you people should be learning, but you're not. You're not learning from history. You're not good students of history because you're carried away by cheap thrills. Yesterday, you guys were taking selfies with trees. Planting trees should be a normal, everyday affair. You should be planting a tree every week, every day. But here, because there's a holiday and then there's a wave of euphoria and some little media buzz, and suddenly you guys are taking selfies with trees. How shameless are you? Because a Muzungu has told you to plant a tree. It should be common sense. You should be planting trees every other day. Yeah, how do we help you, hopeless Kenyans? How will we assist you if you are still falling for the same stance that were used 30 years ago? Here we are talking about Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, the former president, forcefully acquiring Pioneer Building Society. This would have been a Kenyan dream. It could have been probably a multinational by now. We could be dominating our regional countries, but we are so happy when they come and open their banks here because of self-hate. You are fraternizing with the white establishment, and please, everyone says, oh no, I know even within the Western nations they are also fighting that era of being controlled by cartels and corporates. You know, there are all these Twitter handles I see and TikTok handles. There's one called Cancel This Clothing Company, and they're talking about a company like BlackRock, State Street. They are the ones who run the world. They are the ones who control every company. If you think you're drinking this brand because you hate this other one, they also own it. So I'm aware and alive to the fact that even there they are also fighting their own battles. But here it's more pronounced because self-hate has been perpetuated through your political establishment, and which is why I said we must pass a law. We must pass a law banning anyone who has ever worked from IMF, for IMF, for World Bank, for all these WHOs and whatever, from working in the civil service. Whether they agree to pass it now, we have already started the momentum. You understand? So again, I will not buy into the narrative that Njeri is a criminal. He's a criminal based on what? Can they show us evidence that what? Why are they forcefully acquiring her oil? No, silence is consent. If you buy into the narrative, tomorrow it will be you. Tomorrow it will be you. You will be a victim. And the problem is the rich people in Kenya, they look down. They think activism and advocacy is beneath them. Until it's last minute, you're rushing to chase a lawyer. You should have started talking about your businesses earlier. And Njeri, Njoroge, now everyone, it is so easy because you guys are so aloof. You're so, but your heads are so buried under the sand. You don't want to be part of the process. I think a TikToker called Kothek Karanja told you Kenyans you've acquired a bursary mindset. You are more than happy to celebrate Mr. Beast drilling a borehole, but not Julius Malema, who is coming to challenge your thinking. Because you want the final product. You don't want the process of awakening, the process of mental liberation. Now this lady is rushing last minute. She should have, when she was going to DCI, the moment you are invited by DCI, you go with the media. You should have gone. There is a reason why politicians do that. You should have gone. But now you are here. We are. But we will not allow, whether we know you or not, we will not allow this government, in their efforts to dispossess you of your oil, now to besmirch you and to drag you under the mud. No. In the mud. No. Kenyans, we have regressed. We are now Moi era 2.0. Better believe, man. Best believe.